people way up here who don't need any help. It's crazy. Now you launched your bus tour yesterday. How's it going? Where are you going?
It's amazing. So I'm sitting here right now, actually in Athens, but I would get off the road to say hi to Whoopi Goldberg anytime. But we did Lawrenceville, we did Lilburn, we were in Jonesboro, we were in East Atlanta. We are going to be in Columbus tomorrow. We're going to be going throughout the state of Georgia. We're going to Troup County, Fayette County. So we're going to go everywhere. We're going to be on the road for 3 weeks because I want everyone in Georgia to know what we've got available to us. Because as bad as he is, let me tell you what's happening. Georgia has a $6.6 billion surplus.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Yeah. Look, Georgia hit the Powerball, okay? We got $6.6 billion sitting in our bank account right now. Now, the money can't get spent until 2023. We have to have the legislative session come back in. And when the legislators come back in, you have two choices. You can have a governor who's already said what he wants to do is give tax cuts to the wealthy and then property tax cuts that will mainly go to people who are the wealthiest Georgians. So he's going to do property tax cuts and income tax cuts. But that means that the wealthiest Georgians are going to get the bulk of the money. I want to use that same money and pay teachers a pay raise, a real one, of $11,000. I want to put $500 million into affordable housing so we can actually start tackling the housing crisis. I want to expand Medicaid so 500,000 people get health insurance cards. So They can not only go get physical health care, they can get mental health care. I want to put money into small businesses because during COVID, most of our small businesses didn't get a dime. And he did very little to help them. I want to make sure that they get money and get contracts. And so we've got the money, and you don't have to increase a dime in taxes.
Well,
the money's already in our account.
You already have the money. Money is there. And
we won the lottery.
It's the difference between releasing the money to the state of Georgia and the people who are in Georgia and not releasing the money except to the people who don't really need it.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you. Now, I've seen hashtag Georgia Remembers on your Twitter and IG. What is Georgia Remember?
Georgia remembers two things. You saw it today. You guys did a conversation about what happened in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I want to connect the dots.
Yes, please.
So in Florida, a number of mostly men who were returning citizens who'd been incarcerated, the state constitution changed and they were told they were eligible to vote. So they followed the process and they got registered. And because the state legislature and the governor there changed the law, people who thought they were eligible to vote weren't allowed to vote. And they were then arrested for committing voter fraud, which is not, fraud is an intent crime. You have to intend to do something you know is wrong. They thought they were right. They thought they had the right to vote.
Well, because they were told they did. It's like a setup in a funny way. You're looking for voter fraud, and now you've created some.
Exactly. Well, in Georgia, 10 years ago, Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State. He was Secretary of State, and down in Quitman, Georgia, there was a school district that was majority black, but the school board was all white. And so a group of black women said, I just want a voice for our children on the school board, someone who looks like them, who's thinking about the lives they lead every day. And so they organized themselves, and they used a new law that the Republicans had passed that allowed for absentee ballots. They organized, they got people to use those ballots, and they won. The people who lost got so mad, they went to the Secretary of State and said, there must be something they did illegally. But the person who organized it had a PhD, and she called and she got all the rules. Brian Kemp on Christmas Eve had these people arrested, these women arrested in their homes. Their faces were flashed across the newspapers. People lost their jobs. They were charged with 120 felonies because Brian Kemp, the current governor, former Secretary of State, wanted to make an example of them for using the same system that Republicans had used for years. The only difference was this time black women used it and it worked. It took years for these women to go to court. Not a single person was convicted of a single crime but the trauma is still with, and we remember that. We remember that he kicked thousands of people off the voting rolls, that he architected the closure of 214 polling places, and that right now as governor, we know that he has made it illegal for people to get provisional ballots on the day of the election until for a very narrow period of time. And the reason he did this is because Joe Biden won Georgia by a little under 12,000 votes. But half of those votes came from provisional ballots. And so what did Brian Kemp do? He made it illegal to get those provisional ballots for almost every single voter.
It's kind of extraordinary to see the lengths that people will go to keep people from having their legal right.
Yes.
You know, we've fought in all these states, and I'm talking primarily Black folks fought for the right that everybody else is born with to vote. And here you come, Brian Kemp, and you are making what should be a right and something that makes us feel like we have some say in our government. Here you are saying, no, I'm going to arrange it so you don't have any say because we want to tell you how to run your life. You know, we're going to take that very American thing of I get to decide my destiny. I get to decide how many children I want to have, or if I want to have children. I get to decide what my family reads or doesn't read. I always want to say, listen, all those parents who are concerned about books and what your kids are reading, get into the school. Go and sit with the librarians. Don't fight them, join them. Because the idea is to make literacy something we fight for. People are fighting every day to become literate. And what you're doing is you're choosing for them what they want. See, that's what you don't do that in a democracy, as far as I know. But that's me talking. But let me ask you, you mentioned that hospitals are closing. Did you say the Atlanta Medical Center is also closing? I mean, what does this mean for Georgians? This can't be good.
Okay, so think about Los Angeles, or let's do South Carolina. South Carolina has fewer than 5 million people. The city of Charleston has 3 level 1 trauma centers. What that means is if you're in a major car accident, if you have a major traumatic illness, if you need the top people, they've got 3 hospitals that are qualified as level 1 trauma centers for a state of 5 million people, and their capital city has 3 of them, okay? The state of Georgia only has 5 level 1 trauma centers. And because we're losing the Atlanta Medical Center, we're going to be down to 4. But the problem is half of Georgia's population lives in metropolitan Atlanta, okay? 5.7 million people. We're only going to have 1 left because the other ones are here. There's one in Augusta, one in Savannah, one in Macon. We had 2 in Atlanta, and we're losing 1 of them. And so that means if you are near the Tennessee border and you get into an accident and you need Grady Hospital, which is the only one left, Grady has been on what they call diversion, meaning that they can't accept ambulances pretty much every day for the last few years. They are always sending ambulances other places, but they can't send them away. If it's a trauma, you can only go to certain hospitals. You've got to go from the Tennessee border to Macon, Georgia. That's 85 miles from Atlanta.
So if you, so
it's as absurd as it sounds.
But how are Georgians accepting this? I mean,
because he lies. So he lied and said that he didn't have any control over this, that he didn't know what was happening. That is absolutely untrue. Now, WellStar has closed down 2 hospitals. They closed down the emergency room in South Fulton, so it's already impacting Black and brown people south of I-20. But this is downtown Atlanta. This is in Martin Luther King Jr.'s backyard, okay? We know that if we had expanded Medicaid, we would have gotten $12 billion into the state. And here's what that looks like. That means that of the 100,000 patients that Atlanta Medical Center saw this past year who were indigent or charity cases, many of them would have had an insurance card. And so instead of using the hospital as their primary care physician, They could have gone to see a different doctor. That means you're not paying for them to come to an emergency room. They're getting to see a regular doctor. On top of that, because we won't expand Medicaid, we're forfeiting money that we're entitled to pay for those patients. And it's part of a larger system. And so Brian Kemp says, well, it's a failed system. It's not failed. For 38 states, it has worked perfectly. They've gotten more money. They've seen better health outcomes. They've seen lower costs. It has worked it worked in Indiana. If Mike Pence and I agree about something, it must be the right thing to do.
Right. Yes. I mean, so talk to me a little bit about becoming Georgia's governor. I mean, I feel like this is a huge job now, made harder by someone who didn't do the job, who hasn't been doing the job, who has sort of been scratching his butt and, saying no to everything. What is exciting to you about taking this job on? I mean, this is a huge.
I was actually interviewed yesterday by a kid with the Scholastic Press, and she asked me the same question. And my basic answer for her, I think, is the best answer. I want to help people. I grew up poor. I grew up poor in Mississippi. I mean, we do that really well. We know how poverty works really well there. And for me, what was the most important part of how I grew up was that my parents said no matter how little we had, there was someone with less. Your job is to serve that person.
Right.
But now I've actually gotten a chance to experience what it feels like to have more. Right. I get to take my dad to a doctor when he's sick. We didn't go to the doctor when we were kids. Yeah. I get to help my niece when she needs help. I get to be able to be there for my nieces and my nephews. I have friends and family members who are doing better because they got an education. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to the middle class. I've gotten to reach above the middle class. And I don't want to be there alone. I want the people in the middle class to be able to reach higher. And I want folks who only dream about it to get there. And that's what a governor can do by investing in education. Again, this isn't just to do a nice thing to say. Public education saved my life. It gave me parents who knew that they were going to have to find the poor street on the middle class side of town to get me zoned into the good school, to get me to Spelman College and University of Texas and Yale Law School. It made my life different. It made my current opportunities possible. I want that for every young person in Georgia. I want healthcare. I want housing. My parents were able to keep a roof over our heads, but they had to pray hard many times to make that so. But I also want people to make a good living. I got to be an entrepreneur. I got to start my own business. Right. I know that we had to shut down one of our businesses because we couldn't get a loan because my business partner is a woman. I'm a black woman. She was a white woman. And while we hoped that the race stuff would level out, being a woman still didn't help us out. Right. So even though we had an invoice that was worth twice what we needed to borrow, no one would loan us the money. So we created a company to do that, to give people the money they needed. Right. But the governor should be making it more possible for small businesses to thrive. And I asked him about this on Monday, especially for black and brown-owned businesses. I said, what's your specific plan? And he talked about, I made them go back to work during COVID, even though I made it illegal to sue your employer if they didn't provide you with protection. He leaves that part of the story out, that he passed the law to specifically prohibit employees from suing their employers if they were not protected during COVID. I want us to say that we will invest in small businesses, that they'll get access to contracts. And specifically, I like to say it this way. I want to be the Maynard Jackson for the state of Georgia, where we get contracts regardless of your race, regardless of your region. We are going to build thousandaires and millionaires in the state of Georgia because we're going to spend the money we've got helping the people we have do the best they can. That's why I want to be the governor of Georgia.
Well, the thing that I'm hearing is it's kind of remarkable. So you're talking to folks who don't have, and you're saying we could have, if you make me governor, I will make sure, because the money is sitting there. We don't have to go to the rich people and say, we need your money. Money is there to make this magic happen for all Georgians.
Yes.